Hello, this is Debbie and this is Light Up Your Worth. I am excited to have you here and meet this week's guest, Kate Driver. She's a naturopath and a thriver through perimenopause and menopause. She firmly believes perimenopause and menopause can help you live your best life ever. Not only has she managed and thrived through perimenopause and menopause naturally without HRT or bioidentical hormones, she has helped thousands of clients do the same. Despite what others will tell you, you don't have to surrender to the symptoms, and instead you can bust through them naturally. Kate has been consulting as a naturopath for over 24 years and is dedicated to helping women feel empowered and at their best using diet, nutrition, lifestyle changes, and natural supplements. She helps women feel fabulous through midlife. Welcome, Kate.
Hello. Hi, Debbie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's going to notice your accent. Let's do a shout out to everybody in Australia.
Hi, everybody in Australia. I'm in South Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But hello, everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure our Australia listeners like to be called on too. So I'm really excited to get us started today and really wanted to talk about perimenopause and menopause with our adrenals, thyroid, and liver. Can't wait to hear what you've learned and seen.
Yeah, sure. I've been a naturopath for over 24 years now, and over the last 5 or 6 years, decided to specialise in perimenopause and menopause, mainly because I've been through it myself, as you heard in the introduction, but also because I tend to attract those sort of women more and more. These women are getting issues with symptoms and more problems. In some cultures, they don't have symptoms, and it's because of their lifestyle and what they get exposed to. But also their mindset around it. They don't have an expectation that it's going to be terrible and it's a terrible time of your life, and everybody's saying to them, it's a bit of a peer group thing as well, and what we've learned that we're to expect terrible times when hormones change, like in puberty. Yeah, and so this is like the second puberty in perimenopause, because perimenopause generally for most women is a lot worse than menopause, because that's when the change in the hormones actually start. And a lot of women don't know that they're going through it. It's not like, oh, that day and that particular year when I was 45, that's when I'm going to go through it. You don't know. Everybody's going to be different. You could go through it, get symptoms, and then think, what was that, perimenopause, or was it because I was stressed? And for me, for my journey, I mean, it did start for me for a little while in my early 40s. Then the symptoms went away because I got my stress under control. I had major stresses, all the stresses you can think of when I turned 40. And then those symptoms subsided because I worked on my health a lot more. And then later on, probably about 45, 46, I started to get some back again because I was having more stresses. And some women think, well, is it just the stress? And this is something I talk about a lot, even in some videos I've actually done over the years on YouTube. Is it perimenopause, or is it just because your adrenals are stressed or adrenal fatigue? And the adrenal glands are the glands that produce your stress hormones. And one of them that a lot of people know about is cortisol, because cortisol tends to be one of the hormones that gets majorly upset at this time of women's lives. Mm-hmm. So in perimenopause, it can be up and down, and then perimenopause, the hormones are up and down because the ovaries are starting to decline the function of them, so they don't produce the hormones like they used to. So some women might get periods that are more often, or they might get periods less often, or they might just get heavier periods. But for some women, the changes may not be with their periods. They might just get mood swings, or they can't sleep, or they start getting the hot flushes. Then can be loads of different symptoms. But I found the majority of women tend to get worse symptoms around perimenopause because of the fluctuation in the hormones. And it keeps them in a bit of a state of guessing, what's going on? I'm all right now. Then a few months later, it gets worse again because ovaries just do what they like.
I remember during my perimenopause journey.
Yeah, it can be really confusing. So that's why I started to specialise in perimenopause, because even before it became really popular online in the last sort of year, it was about a year or two before COVID. I wrote a program and put some women through that live. I did a few live versions, and they got such good results because, they were struggling and didn't know what to expect and didn't want to go through a terrible menopause. If you're in menopause, it's okay. But if you're in perimenopause, this is the time to work on your health as much as you can because you'll prevent any menopausal symptoms and going through a tough menopause. You don't want to wait until you go through menopause and say, okay, my period's now stopped a year ago or whenever, and I'm in menopause and now wait for the symptoms. You do something about it beforehand. So it's more about preventative. But yeah, so everybody's going to be different stress levels in your life. And one of the major reasons why women do get more symptoms nowadays compared to what probably our ancestors did, and even some of these countries that have a different lifestyle and different expectations around it, is because of stress, because of higher levels of stress. And stress doesn't mean you're running around saying, I'm stressed. You don't have to necessarily feel stressed. It can actually just be because of busyness. It can be because of you multitasking, like women have been taught to, looking on phones, walking and looking on their phones and talking to people and watching TV at the same time. And everybody's on devices. We're all exposed to Wi-Fi and the 5G that's now being rolled out. All of these electromagnetic fields, radiation, this has huge influence on our cortisol and hormones, 5G and blue light exposure influence thyroid health. Yeah, so with the beginning of COVID, everybody started to use more hand sanitizers, but at the same time being exposed to more of these electromagnetic radiation or electromagnetic fields, because if you're stuck indoors, what do people do? They watch TV or they watch YouTube on their laptop or their iPad or their phone or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I know that's when a lot more people were using TikTok and all of those, and all these influencers started coming online, didn't they? Probably, I would say that's probably when there's more of an explosion of people online because people were forced to do that. We're not meant to be exposed to, it's mainly like with the devices, the blue light, because the blue light is a similar frequency of light that we get from sunlight, but it's more intense and constant. We're constantly looking at it. Glasses can block the blue light, and you can turn the blue light filter on. And that's really important because the blue light will actually influence your production of what affects your pineal gland. And the pineal gland is the gland that regulates your melatonin, which is just one of your sleep hormones. Mm-hmm. And because your pituitary gland, even the people call it their third eye.
Third eye. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure your audience knows about this. So the blue light has a big influence on this pineal gland and the way that it produces melatonin during the day and then releases it at night. Mm-hmm. So what they're getting, their circadian rhythm is out of whack because people are exposed to blue light before they sleep. And so the brain and the pineal gland thinks, oh, it's still sunlight, and it's not going to release the melatonin. So then people don't realise why they're having sleeping problems. In perimenopause and menopause, sleeping problems happen. Listeners would say, yeah, my God, I've definitely had sleeping problems. And this is one of the biggest issues that I've found with clients and women I've worked online with as well. Generally, I'd say for anybody at any age, I would say that sleeping problems has definitely increased, and so has anxiety because of well-known things. We all know about what's world events and stresses and worries in the world, but part of that also is to do with this blue light exposure, and they've found that it increases cortisol, that stress hormone that I talked about before, a lot more than prior to when people use these devices as much. So now what they're finding is that because everybody's got more anxiety and high cortisol and issues with sleeping and the hormones and the adrenal glands and the thyroid gland, it's because of this high cortisol that's being released, and the melatonin that's not released as well, stopping people sleeping, that's also a major antioxidant in the body. So when people aren't producing melatonin, then they're not getting protected from things like cancer and other diseases and inflammation in their body, because melatonin does more than help with sleep. It actually helps protect us, things like cancers. Yeah, so the blue light is probably one of the biggest parts of it. And I think because everybody has devices everywhere plugged in, like we all do right now. Like right now, I've got lights all around me and computer, printer, PowerPoints, phone. I'm getting exposed to lots of electromagnetic fields. These fields affect every cell in your body, which means that mitochondria, or the energy center of your cell, is going to get affected. So it can affect literally every gland. But what they've found is that it's more the stress hormones, the adrenal glands that produce the stress hormones, and the thyroid that can be affected. I can't remember which studies I've read over the last, say, 6 months to a year. They're now finding that this electro blue light and even things like 5G, so it's just the frequency from the 5G roll out has a big effect on the gut microbiome, the gut bacteria balance, which we'll be talking about then.
Yeah. Should we get off our electronic 30 minutes or an hour before?
Absolutely. Ideally, it'd be great if we all didn't use it, wouldn't it? But that's not going to happen for me. I'm actually really sensitive to it as well. I've worked with energy healers and intuitives over the years. Nearly every one of them said you're extremely sensitive to EMF. So I thought some of my symptoms were just to do with menopause or perimenopause or stresses. But I totally agree because I feel different when I get away from these electromagnetic fields. So the best thing you can do, yes, is have a break regularly. I personally, I live near the beach, so I go down the beach every morning for an hour and every evening for an hour. And I put my feet in, as long as it's not stormy and freezing cold, I ground and I do some earthing. So I take my shoes off and I put my feet in the water or in the sand. You can do the same sort of thing. Just earthing and grounding will actually help reduce inflammation and electromagnetic fields or the frequency from these devices. You can, even if you've got a lawn in your backyard, you could just lie on the lawn, put your hands in the garden or a pot plant and do some gardening, anything earthing or grounding. If you're in an apartment or it's snowing, get grounding mats. Personally, I do a bit of everything. I've got a grounding mat underneath my laptop. I've got, and it's in front of me right now, a Defender Shield, which is probably the best thing I've used. I have a Defender Shield. In Australia, we get it from a place called, for the Australians online, earthingoz.com.au. Earthing Oz has all the earthing and grounding mats and the blue shield devices, which I'll talk about in a moment, that can protect you from all this blue light and electromagnetic fields. But they've got these products called Defender Shield. And what this is, I can't show you because my laptop is underneath it. It's bigger than my laptop and it's a thick sort of plastic and it's got some layers of different, I'm not sure, I can't remember because I've had it for about 3 or 4 years now. But what's in it actually absorbs the electromagnetic fields and the Wi-Fi. And so when you're using your laptop and typing on it, it's not affecting you. It's actually getting absorbed into this Defender Shield mat.
Oh, I'll find that link and
so
include it in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's made over there. This is one of the best things I bought. I've also got the Defender Shield brand earphones. They've got a cord because you don't want to use any Bluetooth because Bluetooth makes it more concentrated. And look, I used Bluetooth years ago. I thought, this is so cool. I can walk around and drive my car and talking to my friends when I don't have time to at any other times. And I would feel terrible after, this is about 10 years ago now, my partner had I can't remember what they're called, but the electricians would know, those devices that actually the electricians have, they're about $250 and you can detect any electromagnetic fields or rays or radiation around any device. So my partner had one because he was a tradie and he would test the Wi-Fi when I had my phone to my ear, he would test how much radiation came out of it. And it was pretty. But then I would put the phone down and put the Bluetooth in my ear and use my phone, and it would be worse.
Oh.
Yeah. And now they're saying, and you can probably find loads of things on Google or whatever you use for searching, that the studies are showing that all of these little iPod phones that people are walking around with 2 of them in their ears, I see them, I go down the beach quite a lot, and everybody's walking around with these stuck in their ears. And that's just, it's effing everything. I don't want to swear, but it really is effing their bodies because that's pulling in so much. And even the headphones that are a bit trendy, well, they are in Australia, so they're attracting it all. People can go cordless, get rid of Bluetooth, Defender Shield earphones, plug into your phone. They're not as convenient, but they don't let electromagnetic fields into your ears because that part of the earphone is air. The technology is amazing. I've used those for 3 or 4 years. They're fantastic. That's the Defender Shield brand. If you're into crystals, you probably know shungite was really good for absorbing electromagnetic fields. I personally, if anybody is into herbs out there and natural therapies, which is what I am, a naturopath, so I would use lots of these myself. I personally use ginkgo biloba. I use it in a tea because I love herbal teas. So ginkgo biloba has been shown it's a very strong antioxidant, but it's also been shown to protect you from these electromagnetic fields or radiation. And so does rosemary. So I stick rosemary in my cooking and, liver supplement that has rosemary in it as well. Rosemary is also really important to help with the estrogen balance in the body.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I know in America they've got medicine supplements. It's maybe not well known in Australia, but as naturopaths, I use a lot of herbal and nutritional medicine and some homeopathics. I also look into diet. Yeah, we do know that a lot of our supplements that sort of aimed at women that are going through perimenopause or menopause. They tend to have things like the rosemary extract in it and oil, I should say, and usually broccoli sprout extract for the sulforaphane. And sulforaphane is really important for your estrogen metabolism. And then that goes back to how that helps metabolize the bad and the good estrogens. Every woman with hormones needs to be having more cruciferous vegetables. And this is because the cruciferous vegetables contain indole-3-carbinol or DIM, which is the sulfur part helping you metabolize your estrogens. The more cruciferous you have, the more balanced your estrogens are. We also get exposed to too many things that influence our estrogen in a bad way. So that's things like plastics, Glad wrap plastic bottles, plastic containers that people store their food in at home, or getting their spring water in, plastics surrounding food when you buy it in the supermarket. Mm-hmm. So that has a big influence on your estrogen metabolism. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Now we're going down that road. Estrobolome. The estrobolome is the subset of bacteria that influence estrogen metabolism. This is important at every age, whether you're 20 or 45 or 55, because this will influence women when they're younger as well. And a lot of women now are getting endometriosis, adenomyosis, fibroids, PCOS or PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, because of this excess exposure to all these chemicals and toxins that actually mimic these bad estrogens, and they're called xenoestrogens. So the best thing we can do is eat these cruciferous vegetables and avoid all these toxins and chemicals and look after your estrobolome, which is the bacteria in your intestines that help control good and bad estrogens. And by doing that, that can be through diet, having a really healthy diet, but also having good prebiotic and probiotics, whether it's in food or supplement form. Oh. Yeah.
Wow, that was a lot of information. I think it all makes sense, right? We're hearing so much about how our environment impacts us. How do you make changes? I loved all of that you provided us, all these suggestions for us to just take a look at, even our home environments. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but is the cruciferous vegetable you're talking about cauliflower, broccoli?
Yeah, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, cabbage, cabbages. I personally like the purge. It's such a deep colour, then you're going to get the benefits of the phytonutrients, which are some of the natural chemical compounds in brightly coloured fruits and vegetables. And what has been shown is that when you have a diet high in phytonutrients, which is all the richly coloured vegetables and fruits, things like blueberries, beetroot, and red or purple cabbage, that reduces inflammation in your body, which reduces your symptoms in menopause as well. Now, there's lots of scientific studies with that. And I learned that years ago. And so I started writing diets around having loads more of these brightly coloured vegetables. So that's even one thing you can do, is just add lots of different colours to your diet. Cruciferous vegetables are great. Just be aware that if you do suspect a thyroid issue or you have a thyroid issue, to make sure that they're cooked when you have them. Because if you're eating loads of these, and a lot of people do smoothies nowadays and put kale in them and things like that, then, or even have coleslaw, which is raw cabbage, then some of these goitrogens and some components of them, the fibre in it, can actually bind to some minerals that can inhibit proper thyroid hormone production. And you have to have loads of it, so it doesn't matter if you have it once or twice a week raw, but if somebody was having every day a smoothie with lots of kale in it and it was raw, then that they might come with a bit of an issue that's influencing the thyroid function. So that is something to watch out for. Just have all of it cooked. Yeah. You can get broccoli sprout extract in which can help with the estrogens in your body. It's also got covrafen in it, that's a strong antioxidant. It doesn't taste great in powder form, but it's great with food, and eat as many cruciferous as you can. You could actually also grow your own broccoli sprouts. A lot of places around where I live, they sell them. You can probably go to some places over there, I'm sure, that you can buy them and grow them on your windowsill. You can eat broccoli sprouts in your salad. Sprouts are high, any sort of sprout.
Oh, okay. How does our gut impact our hormones? I just recently was told that the stuff going on in our gut, like why we need a probiotic, it's just really confusing how it impacts our brain and cognitive functions. And
a lot of people know that bacteria in your intestines influence your immune system. because we have white blood cells in our intestines, and there's something called the T regulatory cells, so that these cells regulate the balance of your immune system. So they need to be in balance, and that bacteria in your intestines need to be healthy. To have a balanced immune system, whether that's because you're getting sick too often, or some people might get allergies or have something autoimmune, that's an imbalance in the immune system. Bacteria will influence which way your immune system swings. Around 70% of your serotonin, which is one of your happy hormones, is produced in the intestinal bacteria, and dopamine as well. And dopamine is more of the hormone that helps you feel motivated. And so this is why a lot of women in menopause, perimenopause and menopause, would start feeling a bit lower in energy and motivation and a bit down in the dumps. And some women get really terrible depression because of this influence of the gut bacteria. As the hormones drop, and particularly progesterone, this can increase inflammation in the body, and that inflammation will affect the bacteria in the gut. Any inflammation from food or stress, if there's an imbalance in all of the hormones in the body, because all of the hormones are getting upset through perimenopause, especially because they're changing. And so when that gets upset, it upsets that whole gut-brain connection. So you've got the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals, PA axis. Have you heard of that, Debbie?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so for years we talked about adrenal fatigue, but and as naturopaths, we've always known about the HPA axis. The HPA axis is now taking over what's been talked about rather than the adrenal glands that goes out of balance. So people are saying, oh, we've got HPA axis stress or HPA axis imbalance as a way of saying I'm adrenally exhausted, or I've got too much anxiety and it's out of balance. So the hypothalamus and the pituitary, the glands in your brain, and they respond to the hormones changing, the ovaries shutting down in perimenopause, and they get upset. Not upset because they start crying.
That sounds like perimenopause.
So being influenced, the balance of the hormones, normally like a beautifully tuned orchestra, becomes upset. A few hormones start playing out of key, and then it influences all the other hormones. And when we're talking about hormones, I'm not just talking about estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. It can be adrenal hormones, thyroid hormones, blood glucose hormones, and insulin. So it all gets influenced. The HPA axis directly will affect the gut bacteria when that gets upset, and it gets upset or out of balance because of the change in what your ovaries are doing during perimenopause. Mm-hmm. It's also going to happen in menopause when estrogen drops. In perimenopause, estrogen is up and down and up and down. This is why women get symptoms that come and go, and it's different one month to the next. Whereas in menopause, your hormones should be relatively stable. The estrogen has dropped. Your ovaries have shut down and they're not producing your progesterone and estrogen like they used to. And now your adrenal glands are the backup gland that's actually now helping regulate your hormones. So if your adrenals are weak because of stress, ongoing inflammation or stress or health, then that's going to influence the symptoms that you get through perimenopause and menopause. Most women enter perimenopause and menopause with some sort of stress in some kind, and this is how they get symptoms. And this stress affects gut bacteria. This is why I'm trying to tie it into it. And I can't remember how long, but I remember looking at studies years ago and finding that even something like half an hour to an hour of an extreme emotion, whether that's, getting angry or really upset about something, that is enough to start killing off that good bacteria in your intestines. It's not to say that we can't have those emotions. We absolutely have to. We've got to have all the contrast. It's just to show people that this contributes to why my gut bacteria are imbalanced in the first place. It can be loads of stress. There can be antibiotic use. So people that sometimes have to take antibiotics, that will upset the gut bacteria and cause something called leaky gut or intestinal permeability. That is going to have a big influence on all of your hormones as well. And it just means then your liver becomes more stressed because you're reabsorbing toxins, and your liver metabolizes 80% of your thyroid hormones. So that's where the liver comes in. And your liver produces a hormone, the chemical called bile, or it's an enzyme called bile, and that bile can be really influenced as you go through perimenopause and menopause as well. That bile, if it becomes sludgy, then that will influence how much bacteria you have in your intestines as well, because if it's sludgy, it's quite runny and nice and pushes out bad estrogens and bad bacteria from your intestines because it produces some of your feces. So bile is what keeps your feces soft. And if you don't have enough of it, then yes, you're going to have bacteria imbalance in your gut. So then, yeah, you'll get the things we talked about, the dopamine and the serotonin imbalance. That's going to affect your sleep.
Oh,
And then we've got the estrobolome, which I mentioned before. So it's going to mean that you might become more estrogen dominant. And estrogen dominant signs can be issues with weight going up, with moodiness, with heavy periods if you're still in perimenopause. In menopause, it can just be moodiness and joint aches and pains and things like that. And you can still be estrogen dominant in menopause. Just because we don't have as much estrogen as we did 20 years ago, the estrogen is still high comparatively to what that progesterone is, because progesterone's usually quite low with most women. That's a lot of information as well.
Yeah. How do you test it? Is it like some type of spit test, or there's so many different ways other than blood these days to be able to test it? How can you find out the health of your gut?
Oh, your gut. Okay, that's the question I was going to ask. So looking at the microbiome tests, they're quite expensive. One I used years ago was about $495. I used to recommend to clients, but they couldn't keep doing it every 3 to 6 months because it was just so expensive. Microbiome tests are good if you can find a cheaper one. There's something I use in Australia called CDSA, which is a complete stool and digestive analysis. That's usually a little bit cheaper, and it looks at markers. So it takes a little swipe of your feces, and they're very specific with what sort of parasites or bacteria or fungus and what sort of balance of bacteria are in your intestines. But it can enzymes from your pancreas and how much enzymes you're producing, if your digestion through the whole digestive tract is good. And it's able to look at inflammatory markers and other metabolites. So it's, yeah, I think it's really good if somebody has got an ongoing gut issue that they can't resolve. I don't recommend it because it's expensive. It's good to start with your diet and using prebiotics and probiotics and get that balance. And if you still feel like everything is not great and things aren't improving, then spend the money on that. There's so much you can do to save that money.
Yeah. When you're starting to look at pre and probiotics, what should we look for in each? There's so many options out there now. It's a little overwhelming.
If you're trying to get a refrigerated brand, if it says shelf stable, you're suspicious it hasn't got good bacteria. So get a refrigerated brand. It's going to depend a bit on that person, what their symptoms are. So say, for instance, if somebody had a bit of constipation, which is more common in menopause, and perhaps bloating and flatulence, then we look at something like Lactobacillus plantarum, which is one of the strains that helps reduce inflammation and can help with bowel movements, but so can Lactobacillus longum. If people aren't really sure and they don't really know which strains to have, there's something like SB or Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a form of yeast that's really good for diarrhea predominant symptoms. People have food allergies and parasites and things like that as well. But if people aren't sure, then it's good to get a broad spectrum with different strains of Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium. And a prebiotic is the fibres that feed that good gut bacteria, because without the fibre, you can't really help grow that good bacteria inside your gut. And this is why it's important to have fibre in your fruits, vegetables, nut seeds, and all your plant foods, because that encourages the growth of this good gut bacteria. So you don't have to have the prebiotics, but it's actually good to have that combination, especially through menopause when women tend to have more gut issues and inflammation tends to be higher generally. So we can that inflammation, say if you've even got like headaches all the time or skin issues, skin rash or joint pains, then that all points towards you've got high inflammation in your body. So you could actually control part of that inflammation by improving your gut bacteria and improving your diet as well, and having lots of good fibre that feeds the good gut bacteria. With prebiotics, my favourite one, and please, anything I'm recommending, you need to check with your health practitioner. Some natural supplements can have cautions around how medications might be metabolised or work, because most fibres in a prebiotic can slow down absorption of certain medications. So if you take a sleeping tablet before bed or an antidepressant during the day or something like that, then you'd always make sure you take prebiotics at least 2 or 3 hours away from those medications, because what it will do is slow down absorption. My favourites are things like slippery elm, soothing and healing for the gut, and it's really good if people got reflux or GERD or any esophageal inflammation and even things like diarrhea. or even constipation. And the other one I love is PHGG, or partially hydrolyzed guar gum. There's a brand called Sun Fiber, which I have a feeling could be in the US. And Sun Fiber is just the partially hydrolyzed guar gum. And that has been shown, I've been taking that since perimenopause for me, so it's been a long time. It's been shown to help our bowels produce something called butyrate. And butyrate is a metabolite that's made by these bacteria that has been shown to prevent bowel cancer, but also increase the good gut bacteria and heal the gut lining. And it also just makes your stools softer and reduces inflammation in the intestines as well. So your body's suffering, which I know lots of ladies do in menopause with constipation, that can be something that you can have with your probiotic or without it. Yeah, but then you can do things like all your leafy green vegetables and your good forms of fibre and nuts and seeds. And so you can do things like that have what we call prebiotic fibre or resistant starch. So things like oats and legumes like lentils and chickpeas. And then there's things like asparagus and globe artichokes. They will have that good starch in it that helps produce the good bacteria in your gut as well. So there's so many different things. I could talk about it.
Yeah. So is there a link between gut issues and cognitive issues during menopause? Like, I don't particularly the expression, the foggy brain, the memory, the concentration, the recall of simple things. And
yes. So there's probably a few things, and that is common. You're right. But it is, I call it brain fog, and lots of women in Australia do call it brain fog. And when I get a patient that says, I've got brain fog, I know exactly what they're talking about. And I would have to say, I have experienced it a few times because I've been prone to thyroid issues. And a lot of it can be thyroid function because it slows down cognitive function. Clinical, subclinical means it's not bad enough for your doctor to pick up on a blood test, but you're starting to get symptoms affecting you. So you could get this brain fog. You could get higher or lower blood pressure. You could start feeling really tired. Maybe you're not sleeping properly. You might be putting on weight really easily. You might have dry skin, constipation, or changes in your bowel habits. Some people get depression and anxiety when they have thyroid issues. And so subclinical hypothyroidism can definitely be a thing way before you get full-blown thyroid issues. Hopefully none of you will get full-blown because you'll prevent it from getting to that stage like I have done with myself, because I've had subclinical for 20 years and never got to the full-blown because I look after my thyroid health.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, big influence is definitely the thyroid, but it's also when you have high cortisol. With cortisol does go up, that stress hormone affects the hippocampus, important for memory and concentration. So it's about reducing cortisol too, because if the cortisol's high, that's going to keep affecting the hippocampus part of your brain and that recall. So reducing cortisol is really important. So you can do things like, we talked about earthing before, deep breathing to reduce cortisol, do the deep breathing, holding your breath, breathing in for 5, holding for 5 and breathing out for 5 times. I usually try and get women to do that a few times a day. Meditation and yoga and all the nice things that we know that help reduce stress, that's helping reduce cortisol. So that can help over time. But then the gut-brain connection with the foggy head is more prevalent now. I see leaky gut at least 50% more than I used to. And partly stresses, things that have happened in the world over the last 4 or 5 years, viruses and things that people have been exposed to. This actually causes this leaky gut. So that inflammation in the gut barrier, which protects us normally from things that shouldn't get through into the bloodstream getting through, then that becomes leaky or impermeable. And because you're absorbing more toxins and things are circulating through your body, you become really fuzzy-headed and feel really toxic and horrible. That is real. Related to that, I've had the worst foggy head, and this was in my 20s before I was a naturopath, having Candida overgrowth. Candida?
Yeah, I've heard of Candida. Mm-hmm.
So Candida is a yeast everybody has in their intestines. And so before I was a naturopath in my 20s, I did have a lot of Candida overgrowth. And I had some other issues too. And that's one reason why I became a naturopath. But yeah, so that I would just feel like I was craving sugar all the time because sugar feeds Candida and takes over your whole body. And I just felt my brain was full of cotton wool and I was just a fuzzy head and I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't even talk to people properly. So Candida.
Yeah, I've experienced that last year. Mm-hmm.
Have you? Yeah, so that can be real too. And in testing Candida, like you were asking before, what tests you can get. I do live and dried blood analysis in my clinic. So I forgot to mention, don't waste your money on a microbiome test unless urgent. I look at blood under a microscope and I see if they've got Candida or parasites or if their gut bacteria is upset.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I love about seeing patients face to face. I see more than blood tests from a doctor because that's dead blood. I look at live blood. I wish I could show you now because it'd be amazing to see all the blood floating around and I can point out. So I'd see more people with Candida in perimenopause and menopause because of all this influence of all the hormones and everything gets upset,
Mm-hmm.
and women are more stressed. And a lot of women, and it might not be your crowd, it could be a bit of both, but a lot of women drink more alcohol as a buffer because they don't know what to do. They're upset with their body and they give up, and so they start trying to reduce their stress levels by drinking more alcohol, and then that upsets the bacteria in the gut more, and then it feeds the Candida even more, and they've got worse symptoms, unfortunately.
I haven't had a drink, I think, in months now.
That's
And I'm
great.
not a big drinker anyway. It's been interesting not having any alcohol.
Yeah, I only find it interesting.
As I've gotten older, my tolerance is a lot less. It's just how I would feel the next day or just tired.
Yeah.
When you had a glass of wine or two, maybe two glasses of wine, it's not like you drank to excess and you could really feel it the next day.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And because your liver doesn't work as efficiently as we get older, the liver doesn't filter toxins like alcohol as efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
We've got an enzyme we produce called alcohol dehydrogenase. We don't produce it as much as we did when we were younger either, especially when you don't drink regularly. And I'm the same. I haven't had an alcohol for 6 months. Before that, I would have one glass of wine on weekends sometimes. And that would be enough because my body hasn't been used to drinking regularly. Enzyme. So for people, when you meet people that say, "Oh, just don't keep drinking," because they keep drinking and they drink so much and they don't get hangovers, that's because they do it all the time, producing this alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme to break it down, and it's used to it. It actually gets used to producing that enzyme, so it knows to do it. It breaks down the alcohol more easily, and the person doesn't suffer. But when you don't drink often, you can't break it down. So your liver keeps you healthy. And the best for my perimenopause, I gave up alcohol altogether for 2 years. And it helped hugely. That's why I always encourage women if you're getting extreme symptoms, just cutting out alcohol can hugely make a difference to your cortisol levels, to your gut microbiome, to your liver. Your liver is really important for your hormone balance, estrogen balance, thyroid hormone production, and conversion of your active thyroid hormone. So you need to keep your liver healthy forever.
Now, I have a question with your liver. Is in my 20s, mid-20s, actually, I was still pretty young. I had my gallbladder taken out.
Oh,
I
okay.
know that's a common thing with women and this unused organ, but then I've read more about it. Now I'm starting to understand that the gallbladder really helps your liver. And so now that was 30 years ago, I had my gallbladder out. So it's put stress on my liver.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably, Debbie, 30 years ago, they didn't know as much. They might have called it an unused organ. Interesting, isn't it? You wouldn't think that. I don't think we would be created the way we're created and having organs that don't do anything. Why would you have that organ there? So, yeah, the gallbladder is there to store and release bile. So your liver produces it and then your gallbladder releases it. And so it's really important. When you don't have a gallbladder, it still means that you produce the bile, but the bile just trickles out really slowly through the bile duct from your liver, not in large amounts. You would need to work on your bile production and liver, making sure that's regular because it's going to affect you. You can strengthen it. I use homeopathics to strengthen those glands, part of it through diet, but it influences bile release from your gallbladder when your gallbladder is working efficiently. Has a big influence on your hormones. I mentioned before, helps you get the bad estrogens, so you're not prone to things like estrogen-dependent cancers and breast cancer. It also pushes out bad bugs in your gut. So if you did have parasites or Candida or overgrowth of E. coli in your intestines, then that bile is partly there to push that out. So if you're not producing as much, that will affect your gut bacteria and your estrogen. You'll become estrogen dominant. You might be working on it already, but you'd have estrogen dominance and some gut bacteria issues. And because of that estrogen dominance, you'd have a subclinical hypothyroidism, probably a bit of an underactive thyroid. When you get the estrogen dominance too, some women get histamine sensitivities too. But that's another subject I'm happy to talk about another time.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I just started to read in the last couple of years. It popped up on my YouTube, right? I never really thought about not having a gallbladder.
Yeah,
Nobody seems to point it out when, I've moved frequently and you're always telling me you don't have it. And,
so
you know,
nobody's mentioned to you that it's an issue at all. That is
yeah,
very, that's usually one of the first things that I ask women when they fill out the form if they're seeing me online or in person. Do you have a gallbladder? Some people forget to tell you as well because they're like, oh, yeah, that's right, I've got that out. And yeah, not only that, so what would happen, sorry, that's the important thing that does too. When we're talking about hormones, the fats we eat, digest, and metabolize are important to produce these hormones, including cholesterol. So, anybody else out there that's got cholesterol fear, please don't be concerned about your cholesterol going up because it's perfect. Cholesterol is needed to produce hormones. We produce some of that cholesterol from the good fats. But what the bile does also is get rid of the cholesterol, the bad cholesterol we don't want.
that's interesting because my cholesterol's been going down, but the combination of it, the bad has just barely gone up. So
That's
I
good enough.
never, the good stuff went down and the bad stuff went up. So it went in the wrong direction, but didn't know that would link
Yeah,
to the bile issue.
sure. That's to do with the cholesterol. And then,
Mhm.
and then when you think about it's emulsifier, so that means it breaks down fats and helps you digest fats, the bile. So if you're having really good fats, and I try and encourage women to have good fats, especially when you're talking about a foggy head and we want cognitive function to be better. We I think our brain's something like 80% fat. We need good fats for even the bile, lack of bile for you and any other women out there with no gallbladder. That would be an issue with you breaking down your fats, which can definitely lead to cognitive function issues as well as dry skin and even vitamin D deficiency. We need cholesterol and good fat to metabolize vitamin D as
Mhm.
well. Cholesterol. So I'm hoping that people, influence too much about the fear around cholesterol out there. Or good fats. We need good fats like fish oils, oily fish, nuts and seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, avocados, coconut oil and olive oil, cold pressed.
Mhm.
Yeah, all those fats are really important. And even though you haven't got a gallbladder, you still have those fats. But then you'd probably look at helping your body, helping your bile production, so then you can digest those fats more easily. And cholesterol is not really bad. It's only really a worry if somebody had a stroke recently or they've had a heart attack or they've got really high blood pressure and there's a really high risk of something cardiovascular, then you may want to look at, if it's really high, doing it's over 7, I don't know what your levels are over there, 7 millimoles per litre of the cholesterol ratio. If it's over that, then you might want to get it down a little bit, but most people, it doesn't really matter. I know mine's been high for quite a while and it doesn't matter because it means that my body's trying to produce hormones.
Mhm. Oh,
Because we can't produce our hormones without cholesterol. So all these people on statins or on cholesterol-lowering drugs, they get into more trouble because they can't produce hormones, including cortisol. They feel stressed and can't balance their hormones, or they can't get rid of their symptoms because they can't produce their hormones if they're lowering their cholesterol. Cholesterol is the backbone of all your steroid hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Yeah,
wow. This has been fascinating learning how they're connected.
yeah, that's why I like talking about all of them.
You know that they're connected, but how you're sharing it is so different to understand.
Yeah,
Like when you're having some of these issues, like where do you begin when which one it's off? And so I've started to look at my whole gut to help with my cognitive issues. This has been fascinating.
I'm glad. It is for
Yeah.
me to talking about it because it is partly putting all those pieces of the puzzle together and all the symptoms that interrelate and all the hormones in the body that work with each other. It's huge. Not all doctors, but generally the majority of doctors in Australia wouldn't just look at one organ doing one thing. They don't link everything together when you go and say, oh,
Hmm.
these terrible menopausal symptoms. So all they offer is HRT. They can't see that it's all linked. Like if their blood pressure's going up or they've got night sweats or something, then can't they see that it's to do with cortisol in their thyroid gland? And maybe it is to do with their gut bacteria influencing that. Lots of integrated doctors that do that and functional doctors, obviously, but I'm just talking about general GPs. And that's why a lot of people don't learn about it. But I'm passionate about being a naturopath and doing what I'm doing because I'm constantly updating my knowledge and researching and learning and teaching women and talking about this sort of thing, because I do love talking about it. And because the more I talk about it, the more people want to learn and get better.
Mhm. Yeah, and we all want to be better, right? Midlife is full of different things. We've gone through our child rearing years, we're able to travel, we're just able to have more freedom, I think, or spend the time to understand ourselves and learn more. It's an exciting part of life. But
Yeah,
you
you're right.
want your health to be there as well.
That's why it can be a challenge, can't it? Some people say, oh my God, I should be doing all these things, and I felt the worst I have for years. There's so much you can do about it quickly. This is why I want to help women, because they're young enough to do whatever they want to. And
Mhm.
it's liberating time, especially when you're not menstruating anymore. I find it liberating. Women should become more, know themselves better, become more confident, and be in a lot of cultures there, West menopausal women are the wise women. They teach and guide everybody else, and they're looked up to. But I think in some cultures, they're looked down on because it's, oh, you're menopausal women with lots of mood swings, and it's sort of a bit frowned upon, isn't it?
How it's portrayed in the media, like you're going crazy. Symptoms can be an issue, but you start to question yourself. You start seeking out other ways than what hasn't been studied in depth to help us if you don't want to take an HRT.
Yeah, absolutely. There's loads of people taking hormone herbs that help symptoms, but you're not getting to the crux of the situation and treating the cause, which is good to do those sort of herbs. But then you look at, okay, what do I need to change? Do I need to change my stress levels, my diet, my gut microbiome? Do we need to do some healing there? Do we need some liver support? Do I need to go my thyroid levels checked? Do I need more exercise? Get out in nature more, so to help me get my stress levels down and getting rid of all these electromagnetic fields and radiation exposure. There's so
Mhm.
much that you can do in your lifestyle that can have a big influence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well,
it's,
you've provided so much knowledge and wisdom to everybody. I appreciate all of that. Now I want to change direction. And there's the two questions that I love to ask all of my guests. The first one has to do with music. I
yeah.
believe music can really shift us, change our mood. And so I'm always curious to hear about, with all my guests, what's their like go-to song or something that they put on to help uplift them.
There's a few, but I choose two songs by Sia. Funny story, I met her when she's an Adelaide girl, and this is where I live. So she came from Adelaide, and I danced with her and hung out with her for about 4 hours at our Fringe festival, I don't know, 30 years ago. So I did meet her in Adelaide, and now she's really famous. I love her music, and I find her voice unusual. I love her song Unstoppable. Do you know that one? And I just sing that off the top of my lungs because that really gets me going when I feel, oh, I can't do this, or I'm feeling a bit crap or whatever. And the other one, it's called Never Give Up. Yeah, so that probably those two would be my favourite.
I'll add them to my playlist. I have a playlist on my YouTube channel of the podcast. The second question I'd like to ask is with where you are in this season of your life, if you could go back and talk to your younger self about your worth, what would you tell yourself?
Depends how young, but in my 20s, looking after yourself. Because I used to get told by my friends, oh, you're a bit selfish because you do look after yourself a lot. And I kept going. And sometimes I didn't. We're all crazy at sometimes in our lives. Look after your health, hormones, and yourself as much as you can, because and this is what I say to women in perimenopause and menopause too. If you haven't actually addressed some issues with your health through your whole life and you've been ignoring it, and you probably metaphysical as well, and spiritual side, and looking at emotional things or things that we've just been avoiding that we know that we meant to address, then this is usually the time that it's going to slap you in the face and say, come on, you've got to do something about it now. So I would say to avoid terrible perimenopause and menopause and all these things coming up, these issues, saying, come on, you've got to deal with these issues now. We're going to make you deal with it because these symptoms are going to get really bad until you do something about your health. If you want to avoid that, then look after yourself with your health and do as much as you can when you're younger and be as healthy as you can. Go out and have fun, but don't drink too much, don't smoke, don't take drugs, don't eat badly, don't run yourself into the ground, and don't sleep. And yeah, just have fun and really look after your health, because health
Yeah.
is your biggest asset.
Yeah, health is wealth.
Health is wealth. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Kate, how can listeners reach out to you?
They're quite welcome to email me if they want to. My email is katedrivernaturopath@gmail.com. If they do want to just type me a personal question. Otherwise, I've got a website called the Perimenopause Practitioner.com. I'm on Facebook as the Perimenopause Practitioner. I'm on Facebook as Kate Driver and as Kate Driver Naturopath. And I do have another website called katedrivernaturopath.com.au as well for local clients that want to come see me face to face. But if it's mainly for the perimenopausal or menopausal women, the Perimenopause Practitioner, if you Google me, you'll find me. I'm on YouTube under the Perimenopause Practitioner. I haven't done videos for a while, been busy with other projects, but I'll get back. Lots of videos under my name, Kate Driver, about all the things we've been talking about, just little short videos. Also, there's links on there for the free webinar. That talks a lot about what women over 40 and perimenopause can do to help with their symptoms. And I do go through a lot of tips there as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Kate, for being here and sharing just a wealth of knowledge. This is definitely a podcast that people will come back to and listen to more than once to start really thinking about all of the ways that you've provided insight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.